Hello and welcome to Hutchison's regional trial site here in Cornwall at Dinham Farm, just the other side of Weybridge. Today we're going to have a look at some of the winter wheat variety plots as we reach ever closer to harvest. We've got some different hybrid varieties, a couple of hybrids, 12 or 15 conventional wheats, and also some skyscraper seed rate plots to have a quick look at, and some key things which are showing up at this stage. Currently we're back into very warm and dry conditions again after sort of 10 to 14 days of much needed unsettled wetter weather. So here we are in front of one of the skyscraper seed rate plots. This particular plot was drilled at 500 seeds per metre squared, which is considerably higher than the usually recommended seed rates, especially considering this winter wheat was drilled very early October, which for this season was particularly early. But being the winter was extremely wet and challenging for root development and establishment, this 500 seed rate plot actually looks very good, and a very good ear number as well. So this seed rate plot probably has the best potential out of the three. And now we're looking at skyscraper wheat drilled at 300 seeds per metre squared, which is closer to the sort of usual seed rate based on the drilling date, which was very early October for winter wheat in the southwest. Again, this crop looks very respectable, good ear count and good potential. And then as we move across now to the lower seed rate drilling plots of 100 seeds per metre squared, you can see that the plot is quite a bit thinner, as you would expect, but it's still tilled out not too bad for the season, and the yield may not be too disastrous, but it's certainly on the thinner side of what you would like. So here we are now in front of a couple of the hybrid wheats we've got here on the site. What was particularly noticeable about these two varieties as we moved through the season is that they were always a fair bit ahead of the conventional varieties, with ear emergence up to 7 to 10 days earlier than quite a few of the conventionals. Having said that though, the disease in the crop is not too bad. They're fairly clean. The top 2-3 leaves, there's not too much septoria. With this particular hybrid, you can see that it's very tall, with the potential of quite a good straw yield, which could be well, it's particularly useful to the southwest grower. As we move across to the next hybrid on our left, called Hiking, this one's a bit shorter, but you can see it's further on again, and it's already starting to senesce a little bit. So now we're looking at KWS Kinetic winter wheat variety, new this year to the recommended list, and I know it's one that some people have talked about for growing in the region. It's done well in some trials in the southwest over the last few years, so we were keen to include it in this year's trial. Key few points to note though with the variety: it is a high yielder, but disease-wise, septoria, obviously the key disease here in Cornwall and further up into Devon as well. Septoria-wise, it's only rated as a 5, and there is quite a lot of septoria already sort of evident in this in the treated Kinetic here as you look down through the canopy. It is also quite a short variety. One of the things it does have in its favour is it's got a nice spec weight of 78.5, so it may take a bit of favour where people are prepared to look after it. So now we're in the variety of Ixtaze, a variety that a lot will be familiar with by now. It's been around certainly in RL trials and in R trials for the last few years, and it has now got a full RL recommendation as of this year, and is being grown on farms in the southwest as well as we speak, and looking very well on farm in general. Again, here it looks quite respectable, reasonable straw, and again septoria wise pretty clean, and as you'd expect for the variety, being as it's rated as an 8.1 on the list, which is by far and away better than anything else we've got available to us at the moment. So now we're in front of Skyscraper winter wheat, one of the highest yielders on the recommended list. Ordinarily it doesn't find huge favour in the southwest due to its very low septoria rating of only 5. Having said that, this year with a very dry spring and low septoria pressure, this variety has remained very clean. with the top 3-4 leaves pretty much spotless, and as a result the variety looks very, very good and definitely looks to be one of the most promising even and high potential varieties on the site. Another winter wheat variety which has gained quite a bit of interest and talk is Firefly, which was a new winter wheat recommended in 19, so it's been its first full year on the recommended list this last growing season. You can see one key thing about the variety is, again, it's quite short. One of its key characteristics which gives it a lot of favour for the southwest is septoria. It's rated as a 7 and it is pretty clean septoria wise, with the top 3 leaves bearing very little if any septoria at all. But as you can see, it is quite thin anyway, this particular plot, so the septoria pressure would inherently be less. One key thing to note though, as we move across to the untreated Firefly directly behind, is the high level of brown rust in the variety. Brown rust is coming into this site now on a lot of varieties to varying levels, but Firefly is showing up to be the worst for brown rust, with lots and lots of pustules shown right up through the canopy and particularly on the top 2 leaves, which obviously is going to have a big impact on the yield. Now we're in front of one of the old favourites, Diego, largely fallen out of favour over the last few years due to disease and improved varieties coming forwards for the region. But this year, again, like Skyscraper, with the lack of septoria or much lower septoria pressure for the year, this variety actually looks pretty strong and very, very clean as well from a septoria point of view. But behind us we've got the untreated Diego, and you can just see that there has been septoria pressure and the value of the fungicide, with disease quite easily seen down through the canopy, septoria being one of the main diseases, but also some rust coming in as well more recently in the last few weeks with the sort of hot, dry weather. Brown rust has peered into the crop, and that is a particular threat. So to finish on the wheats, we'll just go through a couple of the more widely grown in the last few years in the southwest. One which has found a bit of favour on some farms and has been quite consistent over the last couple of years is Dunstan. It did very well in our St Mabon site 2 years ago and was one of the top yielders. It's quite long straw variety, which is a benefit to a lot of farmers in our region. Septoria wise, it's a 6.6, so it's one of the best for septoria as well, which is vitally important. And you can see it's pretty clean and does look quite good. As we move across to the next variety, we're now into the Costello, which you can noticeably already see is a drop off in height from the Dunstan. Having said that, it is a consistent performer, and that's why it does do well here in the southwest. Very good Hagberg, so the sprouting resistance is good. Highest spec weight on the list as well, which is vitally important down here. Septoria wise, it's just over a 6, so middle of the road. Again, this year with a low septoria pressure, it's pretty clean and looks to have good potential. And then finally, as we move across, we come into Graham, which now would be the market leader really in a lot of the country, but certainly in the southwest. High 6s for septoria, so very strong with septoria, and good consistent performer in terms of yield and good straw and grain quality as well. This year on this site, however, you can see a little bit of septoria coming in, a little bit on the tips of flag leaf, and also tiny bits on summer leaf 2 and 3. It is one of the cleaner varieties, but having said that, it's perhaps not as clean as you would expect given its septoria rating. But I know on farm it does look very, very promising again, so it's one to continue to rely on, I think.